Now this is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is, perhaps, the end of the beginning. The best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. Never, never, never give up. The price of greatness is responsibility. The farther backward you can look, the farther forward you can see. All the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope. I am an optimist. It does not seem too much use being anything else. Victory at all costs, victory in spite of all terror, victory however long and hard the road may be, for without victory there is no survival. This is no time for ease and comfort. It is time to dare and endure. History is written by the victors. The empires of the future are the empires of the mind. To build may have to be the slow and laborious task of years. To destroy can be the thoughtless act of a single day. True genius resides in the capacity for evaluation of uncertain, hazardous, and conflicting information. We contend that for a nation to try to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself up by the handle. I am prepared to meet my Maker. Whether my Maker is prepared for the great ordeal of meeting me is another matter. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. You can always count on Americans to do the right thing after they've tried everything else. The truth is incontrovertible. Malice may attack it, ignorance may deride it, but in the end, there it is. In wartime, truth is so precious that she should always be attended by a bodyguard of lies. Heights rise highest against the wind, not with it. We have always found the Irish a bit odd. They refuse to be English. My most brilliant achievement was my ability to be able to persuade my wife to marry me. Mr. Apley is a very modest man. Indeed, he has a lot to be modest about. If you have an important point to make, don't try to be subtle or clever. Use a pile driver. Hit the point once, then come back and hit it again. Then hit it a third time, a tremendous whack. It is a good thing for an uneducated man to read books of quotations. Solitary trees, if they grow at all, grow strong. Courage is rightly esteemed the first of human qualities, because it is the quality which guarantees all others. Politics is not a game. It is an earnest business. There is no such thing as public opinion. There is only published opinion. Let our advance worrying become advanced thinking and planning. There are two things that are more difficult than making an after-dinner speech: climbing a wall which is leaning towards you and kissing a girl who is leaning away from you. Everyone has his day, and some days last longer than others. Difficulties mastered are opportunities won. I'm just preparing my impromptu remarks. A politician needs the ability to foretell what is going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, and next year, and to have the ability afterwards to explain why it didn't happen. Never give in, never, 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 in nothing great or small, large or petty. Never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. Those who can win a war well can rarely make a good peace, and those who could make a good peace would never have won the war. Play the game for more than you can afford to lose. Only then will you learn the game. The first quality that is needed is audacity. It is always wise to look ahead, but difficult to look further than you can see. In war, you can only be killed once, but in politics, many times. Too often the strong, silent man is silent only because he does not know what to say, and is reputed strong only because he has remained silent. My rule of life prescribed as an absolutely sacred right smoking cigars, and also the drinking of alcohol before, after, and if need be during all meals and in the intervals between them. My wife and I tried 2 or 3 times in the last 40 years to have breakfast together, but it was so disagreeable we had to stop. We are stripped bare by the curse of plenty. I have never developed indigestion from eating my words. There are a terrible lot of lies going about the world, and the worst of it is that half of them are true. What kind of people do they think we are? Is it possible they do not realize that we shall never cease to persevere against them until they have been taught a lesson which they in the world will never forget? To jaw is always better than to war. He has all of the virtues I dislike and none of the vices I admire. Sure I am of this, that you have only to endure to conquer. If you go on with this nuclear arms race, all you are going to do is make the rubble bounce. It is a fine thing to be honest, but it is also very important to be right. Great and good are seldom the same man. Perhaps it is better to be irresponsible and right than to be responsible and wrong. Want of foresight, unwillingness to act when action would be simple and effective, lack of clear thinking, confusion of counsel until the emergency comes, until self-preservation strikes its jarring gong. These are the features which constitute the endless repetition of history. I am easily satisfied with the very best. When the war of the giants is over, the wars of the pygmies will begin. The power of an air force is terrific when there is nothing to oppose it. It is a mistake to look too far ahead. Only one link of the chain of destiny can be handled at a time. This report, by its very length, defends itself against the risk of being read. Before Alamein we never had a victory. After Alamein we never had a defeat. Personally, I'm always ready to learn, although I do not always like being taught. Battles are won by slaughter and maneuver. The greater the general, the more he contributes in maneuver, the less he demands in slaughter. Study history, study history. In history lies all the secrets of statecraft. One ought never to turn one's back on a threatened danger and try to run away from it. If you do that, you will double the danger. But if you meet it promptly and without flinching, you will reduce the danger by half. Never run away from anything. Never. Some people regard private enterprise as a predatory tiger to be shot. Others look on it as a cow they can milk. Not enough people see it as a healthy horse pulling a sturdy wagon. If you have 10,000 regulations, you destroy all respect for the law. Healthy citizens are the greatest asset any country can have. Man will occasionally stumble over the truth, but most of the time he will pick himself up and continue on. In the course of my life, I have often had to eat my words, and I must confess that I have always found it a wholesome diet. The power of man has grown in every sphere, except over himself. Eating words has never given me indigestion. Men occasionally stumble over the truth, but most of them pick themselves up and hurry off as if nothing had happened. In war as in life, it is often necessary, when some cherished scheme has failed, to take up the best alternative open, and if so, it is folly not to work for it with all your might. Politics is almost as exciting as war, and quite as dangerous. In war you can only be killed once, but in politics many times. I cannot pretend to be impartial about the colors. I rejoice with the brilliant ones, and am genuinely sorry for the poor browns. One does not leave a convivial party before closing time. Meeting Franklin Roosevelt was like opening your first bottle of champagne. Knowing him was like drinking it. We occasionally stumble over the truth, but most of us pick ourselves up and hurry off as if nothing had happened. From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. I always avoid prophesying beforehand, because it is a much better policy to prophesy after the event has already taken place. In those days he was wiser than he is now. He used to frequently take my advice. Politics are very much like war. We may even have to use poison gas at times. For my part, I consider that it will be found much better by all parties to leave the past to history, especially as I propose to write that history myself. It is a fine game to play, the game of politics, and it is well worth waiting for a good hand before really plunging. Although personally I am quite content with existing explosives, I feel we must not stand in the path of improvement. India is a geographical term. It is no more a united nation than the equator. When we look back on all the perils through which we have passed, and at the mighty foes that we have laid low, and all the dark and deadly designs that we have frustrated, why should we fear for our future? We have come safely through the worst. We are asking the nations of Europe, between whom rivers of blood have flowed, to forget the feuds of 1,000 years. Christmas is a season not only of rejoicing, but of reflection. I was only the servant of my country, and had I, at any moment, failed to express her unflinching resolve to fight and conquer, I should at once have been rightly cast aside. No part of the education of a politician is more indispensable than the fighting of elections. I have been brought up and trained to have the utmost contempt for people who get drunk. We do not covet anything from any nation except their respect. If it weren't for painting, I wouldn't live. I couldn't bear the extra strain of things. Really, I feel less keen about the army every day. I think the church would suit me better. It is more agreeable to have the power to give than to receive. If the human race wishes to have a prolonged and indefinite period of material prosperity, they have only got to behave in a peaceful and helpful way toward one another. I am certainly not one of those who need to be prodded. In fact, if anything, I am the prod. Broadly speaking, the short words are the best, and the old words best of all. I am never going to have anything more to do with politics or politicians. When this war is over, I shall confine myself entirely to writing and painting. The problems of victory are more agreeable than those of defeat, but they are no less difficult. A prisoner of war is a man who tries to kill you and fails, and then asks you not to kill him. If the Almighty were to rebuild the world and asked me for advice, I would have English channels round every country, and the atmosphere would be such that anything which attempted to fly would be set on fire. I always seem to get inspiration and renewed vitality by contact with this great novel land of yours which sticks up out of the Atlantic. The great defense against the air menace is to attack the enemy's aircraft as near as possible to their point of departure. Baldwin thought Europe was a bore, and Chamberlain thought it was only a greater Birmingham. We shall show mercy, but we shall not ask for it. No crime is so great as daring to excel. The British nation is unique in this respect. They are the only people who like to be told how bad things are, who like to be told the worst. When I am abroad, I always make it a rule never to criticize or attack the government of my own country. I make up for lost time when I come home. Do not let spacious plans for a new world divert your energies from saving what is left of the old. When you are winning a war, almost everything that happens can be claimed to be right and wise. These are not dark days. These are great days, the greatest days our country has ever lived. No idea is so outlandish that it should not be considered with a searching but at the same time a steady eye. The reserve of modern assertions is sometimes pushed to extremes, in which the fear of being contradicted leads the writer to strip himself of almost all sense and meaning. For good or for ill, air mastery is today the supreme expression of military power, and fleets and armies, however vital and important, must accept a subordinate rank. War is mainly a catalogue of blunders. The short words are best, and the old words are the best of all.